My name is Scott Ullman. I'm the Regional Training Coordinator of the Foundation Center. Tom has been a lawyer for over 15 years. His focus has been on nonprofits for almost all of that time. I also asked him his background with international, starting international nonprofits or U.S. agencies that have overseas activities. And so I have a feeling we may have Tom coming back. Mm-hmm. He's helped over 1,000 nonprofits start in his practice in the United States. I introduced you to Tom Wrobel and encourage you to give him a gentle but thorough examination of issues around starting a nonprofit.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
And I want to just start off by thanking the Foundation Center for having me, and thank you all for coming. The Foundation Center, if you don't know, is a great resource for existing nonprofits and people like you that are considering starting a new nonprofit. I want to start off with a little introduction about myself and my law practice. It actually wasn't me. It was myself and my staff who helped our clients start over 1,000 nonprofits. We've had a 100% success rate with our clients that we've done all the formation work and the application work. Like Scott said, I've been working with nonprofits since 1997. Our mission is really to empower others to better the world. Now, how did I get into nonprofits? I want to just tell you a little story. When I was 24, after 2 years of law school, I decided to take a break, take a semester off and summer off, and I went traveling in Southeast Asia. And there I traveled to India, Malaysia, and Thailand. I worked for a newspaper in Bangkok, and we covered the ASEAN conference up in Chiang Mai. It's one of these trade blocs, much like the European Union. And after my travel experience, I was riding back on the train thinking about my experience traveling all those months and what a great experience I had being out of the context of where I'd grown up, where I'd gone to school, and learning so much about myself and about other peoples and other cultures. And I had an idea of starting a nonprofit where young people would be supported in traveling overseas so that they could have a similar experience. So that was my first involvements with nonprofits. I may have volunteered here and there for a nonprofit, but that's when I first started thinking about starting my own nonprofit. Well, needless to say, the name of that the nonprofit, by the way, was the Four Winds Foundation. I got as far as a name, a purpose, and that's about it. It never materialized for a lot of reasons. Namely because there's a lot of obstacles to starting a new nonprofit, as I'm sure many of you have come across. But hopefully we'll be able to demystify some of those things so that you can be well on your way to starting your nonprofit. What you can expect today is an overview of the process. We're not going to get into all the nitty-gritty, but you'll have a pretty good sense of what's included. An understanding of what the fiscal sponsorship option is, highlights of mistakes that you need to avoid in the whole process, keys to growing and sustaining your nonprofit, an explanation of my firm's services, and provide you with an opportunity valued at $1,100. Is it okay that I'm here to help to sell my services and hopefully get you as a client?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, who feels that the show of hands, who feels that the process of starting a nonprofit is daunting? Okay, don't be shy, just, that's about half the room. The other half is either too hot, just trying to get here, or they don't want to participate. What are the challenges that you're facing? All right, go ahead. Funding. That's probably the number one challenge in getting a nonprofit off the ground. Go ahead.
Working with a fiscal sponsor.
Do you
get through the process?
Do you have someone?
Yeah, of community initiatives.
Okay, great. Anybody else have a challenge they'd like to share? Go ahead.
The legal framework.
The legal framework. Okay. What about? Is it complicated or?
There's a lot of reading involved that gets around it being complicated, but in the long run, yeah.
Okay, and you had one?
I was going to say find a good lawyer. It's been
Okay.
another
Well, you
job.
came to the right place. Okay. Well, I'll just cover the challenges that I faced when I was 24. Four Winds Foundation. It was a great idea. Pay it forward. Help other young people travel overseas so they could really learn about themselves and other people. It was definitely funding, figuring out what the next steps were, getting busy with the rest of my life. Going back to law school. Yeah. Much of the same challenges that you're experiencing now. All right, so there's three main stages of starting a 501c3 from a legal perspective. There's the initial planning stage, which most of you are in the midst of that. There's the formation, which is actually getting your articles of incorporation filed with the state, approved and filed with the state. California is relatively easy because they have sample forms that includes all the requisite language. Some states are not so nice. They actually omit a lot of the language that the IRS needs. So I find that my office is having to amend a lot of articles of incorporation because it just doesn't have the requisite language of the IRS. And if you use the California Secretary of State's website's forms, you're going to be okay in that front. Okay. And then the final stage is the exemption and registration stage, and we'll get into more detail about these. Okay, so in your initial planning, you want to be writing your mission statement in the two to five sentences, which captures what your organization is going to be doing. You want to pick a name. You used to have just what was recommended is doing a search at the Secretary of State's website, reserve your name. I find that that's actually not the best route because that omits organizations from other states. And so what you want to do is to make sure that you search for your name through Google, your proposed name through Google, and also through a domain search because you want to get a website URL that is complementary to your nonprofit's name. Okay? Has everybody done that? Done a search on the show of hands? I'm going to make you raise your hands a lot during this presentation. So, okay. So once you've picked a name that you feel really good about, you've got a mission statement, you're going to need to develop a comprehensive description of what your programs are going to be for your nonprofit. It should describe the who, what, when, and where, and why of what you're going to actually be doing. Okay? And you're also going to need to identify who's going to be involved with your nonprofit on your board of directors, who's going to be officers of your organization. So after you've got your mission statement together, you want to develop a comprehensive description of what your programs and activities are going to be. Now this doesn't mean that you describe everything that your organization is going to do from now until the end of time. It's really a snapshot of what you're going to be doing. Okay, your programs may change, they may evolve, but you really want to think about the next few years what you're going to be doing with your nonprofit. And so I would recommend that you're writing at least a page or two describing what you're going to be doing per program. So like, for example, your green workshop nonprofit, you may be doing workshops in school, you may be doing after-school programs, you may be introducing curriculum into K through 12 educational programming, all kinds of different things. You may have some online content that you want to be providing. So each of those are different programs that you're going to want to describe in your program description. And you're going to use that program description for your IRS 1023 application, your exemption application, okay? And you're going to use that program description for a lot of different reasons. Maybe a letter of inquiry to a potential funder for your organization, for a grant, etc. Okay, another very key component to starting a nonprofit is choosing the right leadership. You're going to first you're going to really focus on recruiting a board of directors that's going to provide the leadership and the oversight for your nonprofit corporation. Let me just ask the group here, what sort of people you think would be good on a board of directors for a nonprofit? Any ideas? Okay.
People who sit on other boards,
Okay. But they might be too busy.
maybe.
But that's a okay. What other qualifications? Okay, hold that thought real quick. Somebody who has access to financial resources, either their own or through the people that they know. That's a very good point. I mean, it's not rich, but people of means that can be financial supporters and also fundraisers for your organization. Okay? It's not a laughing matter, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
People who are interested in your mission.
People who are committed to the mission that you're trying to forward with your nonprofit. That's very key. I mean, if they're not committed to what you're trying to do, they're going to lose interest in your nonprofit, after a year or two. You want somebody that is going to be able to contribute over time. They're motivated to bring other people involved, to promote your nonprofit, to provide financial resources, volunteer at your events, that sort of thing. So, what else? Go ahead.
I have a question about advisory.
Okay, I'll get to that after we do qualifications for board. Okay, go ahead.
You want, I think, a mix of people. So people who would have maybe some business experience to lend that point of view, but also program experience, so that you've got some expertise in the field and
Absolutely.
complement each other on the board.
That's really great. Go ahead.
I would say clients or people that would be using the services or who that nonprofit is their mission is geared towards.
Well, that may be a good option for some nonprofits. Obviously, if your clients are kids, maybe you want a couple kids on your board, but maybe not voting membership for the kids. But any other suggestions? Go ahead.
People with fiscal management or legal background.
Absolutely. All very valuable.
Maybe a community member who's active in that area already.
Absolutely, especially if your nonprofit is very community focused. Recently I read somewhere that all nonprofits are local, and it really is when you're starting off a nonprofit. Even though you may have a mission about doing work overseas in a developing country or something, you really need to get people involved with your nonprofit locally, that can help you. Okay. All right. So you had a question about advisory boards. What's your question?
Well, is there a legal requirement for a separate advisory board, or is that something that's informal and may be helpful to you as you're getting going, but it's actually not required?
Great question. It's not required. In fact, the bylaws that I prepare for my clients, I include that as an option for the nonprofit. It's definitely something that I would recommend to develop an advisory board, but legally they don't have any say in running the nonprofit. So advisory boards generally are people that may not have the time to do the more hands-on role of the normal board, but they're people that support the mission. Maybe they have access to resources, financial resources, or even physical space, or other types of resources that your nonprofit might need. So definitely recommend that. That's not the first thing that you think of when you're starting your nonprofit, though. You really want to focus on developing your board of directors and then your officers. Some people have some confusion over the role of officers and the board of members. The board actually oversees the nonprofit, but not on a day-to-day basis. The officers are really the executives. actually handling the day-to-day operations, or at least managing staff that may be doing the day-to-day operations. The board of directors elects the officers. Oftentimes, people that are serving on the board of directors are also serving as officers of the corporation. Quite often, the president acts as chair of your board of directors at the board meetings. But you may also have a separate chair, someone that's just on the board of directors. Any questions about, I know this is just a very cursory review of those two roles, but any quick questions?
What's the magic number for board members that you found? Because I've been told keep it as small as possible so you can get decisions made and be nimble.
So what's small as possible?
3.
I usually recommend a range. So the bylaws that I draft for my clients, we usually have a range of anywhere from 3 to 7, 3 to 5, 5 to 9, depending on the nature of the nonprofit. Sometimes you want a larger board. Sometimes you want a smaller board. I would never recommend less than 3, though. Go ahead.
What's the liability of the officers?
And good question. Generally, officers and board members are only liable for malfeasance when they're actually doing something illegal that they know is illegal. If they do something by mistake, or if there's negligence, then they're generally not responsible. Nonetheless, if your nonprofit has the means, I highly recommend getting insurance to protect your board members. In fact, a lot of board members won't even serve unless you have insurance. So, a great resource for insurance for your nonprofit, I would recommend checking out the California Association of Nonprofits.
Yeah.
They're an insurance broker, or they have someone that serves in that capacity. And they have a lot of other resources for nonprofits. So I definitely become a member, or at least check out their website. This is an area that the IRS is very concerned about. They don't want to see a preponderance of family members or business associates on your board and your officers, because it just doesn't, it looks like there's a conflict. Okay, so let's say you as the founder, you're setting up your nonprofit, you're going to be kind of the executive director, president of the nonprofit, and if your mom and your brother and your sister-in-law is on there, they're voting on your compensation. So they have an indirect financial interest in your salary, right, as family members. So the IRS does not want to see family members or business associates, okay, on your board. I generally recommend that you have a conflict of interest policy, and you can find samples of conflict of interest policies in a lot of guidebooks and so forth. That's something that we provide our clients as well. All right, so many of you here are interested in fiscal sponsorship. Fiscal sponsorship is basically an interim option that you can use short of fully starting a new nonprofit and getting status from the IRS. What you will need is you will have to work with an existing 501c3 that's willing to sponsor you. Once you find that, then it's a lot easier after that point. Once you find someone that's willing to partner with you, you'll really have all the same benefits of that existing 501c3 status of your supporting partner. The purpose of your supporting partner, they have to have a similar purpose so that your proposed activities that they're sponsoring falls underneath their activities. Is that clear? And with fiscal sponsorship, using their status, kind of piggybacking off of their 501c3 status, you're able to apply for grants, offer donors and funders a tax deduction, and you're able to fundraise with that 501c3 designation. A lot of people, it's very important that they also get some sort of tax benefit. So that's the real big benefit of being a 501c3. Okay. Other benefits include, legitimacy. You're kind of get the seal of approval from the IRS that you're legit, etc. The most common scenario is really where there's a new nonprofit. Maybe you're incorporated. Maybe you're at the idea stage, and you want to implement one of your programs, or you want to do a project. You find someone that's willing to sponsor you. Essentially, you're going to need a written agreement, a fiscal sponsorship agreement, where a lot of these details are taken care of. But really, you're coming underneath their umbrella. What they would do is set up within their own books a separate account for your project. Let's say you brought in money. You did some fundraising. You raised $10,000, $15,000 to fund your, let's say it's the green art workshop. Okay, you're being fiscally sponsored to develop this program and introduce it as an after school program. You have some financial backers, but you don't have the 501c3 status. You find a sponsor. You need to develop the terms of agreement with them, reduce it to a writing so it's all clear. Oftentimes they want a percentage of what you raise to help them defray their costs of actually running those numbers through their accounts, through their books, etc. I get calls all the time from people who have ideas on becoming a nonprofit. Some of them, are, I want to avoid taxes, so I want to set something up to basically benefit themselves. We get a few of those calls a month, but my job is to explain what the law is and what they can do and how they can actually qualify, and so sometimes we have to turn people away. But other times people have a really great idea, like just the other day, and I'm happy to work with someone if we can make it happen. But this gentleman came in, his name was Dorland. He's really passionate about empowering musicians, because musicians, it's hard to make money as a musical artist. Very few people actually can make a living off of it. So he wanted to create a social networking site, a web-based, and he had a tech background, and so he thought he could make this into a nonprofit because that gives him more credibility amongst the artist community. And and when push came to shove, his revenue model fell outside of what's acceptable by the IRS as a 501c3. So after meeting with him, I had to tell him, I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're not going to qualify, and I'm not going to take money from you unless you're going to qualify before the IRS. Yes, if it's something novel and that's something that could fit within the categories of what's permissible as a 501c3, then I would have taken him on as a client. But I told him, sorry, I can't help you. I referred him to another attorney. Sure enough, he called me sent me an email a couple of weeks later. Met with the other attorney. He sent me a bill for 2 hours. I was kind of pissed about that, but you were right. I can't really do what I wanted to do. So, but anyway, the general categories of what you can do as a 501c3: charitable, religious, educational, scientific, literary, testing for public safety, fostering national and international amateur athletic competition, prevention of cruelty to children or animals. It's kind of weird that those are in the same sentence, but but under these categories, there's literally thousands and thousands of different types of nonprofits that can fall under these general categories. So, if you're trying to do something that has already been set up as a nonprofit, you're probably free to go forward with that and set it up on your own. But if you're not sure, get some help. Get some advice. We offer a 20-minute free consultation to prospective clients. You can call our office. Our contact information is in the folder that we provided to you. My staff is happy to talk to you about that. Okay, so here's an example of one of these categories, charitable. So it's beneficial to the public. It's serving a class of people rather than an individual or a small group of people. It's not limited by a number of identified people. Relieving the poor, distressed, underprivileged, advancing education, etc. You see the list here. One question we get a lot is, my friend, this is an example. My friend was diagnosed with a rare disease, and our community is rallying around helping our friend. And it's really tragic what's happened to them. It's changed their life, etc. And they want to set up a nonprofit to benefit that one individual. Can't do it, unfortunately. You could set up a fund where people can donate to that fund, but you're not going to get a tax deduction. Okay, because it's benefiting one person rather than a class of people. Okay.
Can you make it the disease that's infecting?
Yeah, sure. There's lots of nonprofits that help people with a particular disease.
Yeah.
A class of people that have a disorder. One client I set up, was a doctor who had worked with kids with Asperger's, and I didn't even know anything about it. I learned about it. That's actually one of the great things about my job, is I get to learn about a lot of different things. And so this doctor, he wanted to set up a nonprofit that's going to educate the general public about this disease and what the options are for treating it, because he had so much success in treating his clients. Okay, so you're at various points in the whole planning process, but you really need to ask yourself some questions. Am I really the one to set up this nonprofit? Do I have the leadership that's required to make this nonprofit happen? Is there really a need for what I'm proposing to do? Can you learn from or partner with an existing organization? Will your programs qualify as 501c3 purposes? Will your organization be sustainable? Will people support it? Is it something that people care about? Maybe it's something that you're the only person in the world that cares about it. So it may not be sustainable. Okay, leadership. And do you have a fundraising plan? One of the biggest obstacles, the first one mentioned today, is fundraising and revenue for the organization. So that's very important. What's your plan going forward to be sustainable? Okay, formation, articles of incorporation, establishing bylaws that are going to govern your organization, conflict of interest policy, your board meeting that's going to elect your officers and delegate certain authority for the organization, hiring decisions, EIN, bank account. Question is this in order form? Well, I would say that you want to pick your board of directors, get those people lined up before you actually do a lot of these things. You can be incorporated without having your board in place. That's possible. And it varies. It depends on where you're at, how fast you want to get set up as a 501c3. When I work with my clients, I kind of do all of it contemporaneously. So I'm preparing all the paperwork, as much of it as quickly as possible, and getting it filed as quickly as possible. In the state of California, it takes up to 3 to 4 weeks to get it back from the Secretary of State's office. It used to be you could get it done over the counter.
This is incorporation, or
This is incorporation. So you actually have to file it with the Secretary of State. If you mail it, it takes even longer. But because of budget cuts, it takes longer. They just have less staff. Bylaws, that's something that your board of directors is going to want to look at and make sure, because they're going to have to approve that. Okay, you can get an EIN as soon as you're incorporated. So that could be toward the beginning of this list. And once you've got your entity set up, your bylaws in place, your board of directors in place, your program activities fully described, and your mission statement, it's in your articles of incorporation, you've got your EIN, you've got all these kind of different components together, the next step is to prepare your 1023, or at least finalize it, because you're going to need all those components that I just talked about for your 1023 filing. Okay, drafting the articles, definitely check out the Secretary of State's website. It has sample forms that you can use. Bylaws, there's a lot of resources where you can get sample bylaws. You can actually find them on the internet. But there's a lot of different types of bylaws. And again, I would recommend that you, if you have the means, get help. Okay? Submitting your articles, we talked about that a little bit. EIN, that you can do that online. It's very, very straightforward. The form involved, which you have to keep in your corporate records book, is Form SS4. Drafting a business plan. This slide's a little out of place. It should really be in the initial planning stage of your developing your nonprofit, but you really want your business plan to deal with all the requisite requirements for your 1023 application. Again, mission, program description, your fundraising strategy. How are you going to sustain the organization? How are you going to fundraise? Where do you expect your revenue to come from? From donors, from online donations, from other foundations that give out grants, from government funding, which is an option for some types of nonprofits. You're going to need a budget for your 1023 application. So I get a lot of questions from clients about the whole budget process. Generally, guesstimate it. Do some research. Figure out as best you can, but you're not going to be able to nail down all your numbers, but you need to put something to paper. So, okay, the exemption and registration process. We've talked about some of the components that you're going to need through for the 1023 application to the IRS. Download it, look at it, see if you can figure it out. One of the slides that I provided to you is the instructions in the back of the instructions section. For every federal form in the back, they give an estimate of how long it's supposed to take to actually fill it out. For learning about the law or other form for filling out the 1023, 5 hours and 10 minutes. And then preparing the actual form, 9 hours and 39 minutes. So, and let's say you're going to need one of the schedules for the applications. Let's say you're a church or a school, or you're providing housing. Then there's different suggested times for each of those schedules. So just thought I'd point that out to you. Along with the 1023 application to the IRS, you're going to have to do the state equivalent to getting state exempt status. Fortunately, California has simplified their process. Once you get a letter of determination back from the IRS saying approved 501c3 organization, you can submit that to the state of California's Franchise Tax Board, and they'll accept that. Yes, you are exempt under California's kind of corollary statutes under California law. Okay, and that form is called 3500A, and that's submitted to the Franchise Tax Board. There's other filing requirements that you're going to have to do. You have to register with the California Attorney General's office if you're a charitable organization. That's Form CT1. You have to provide them a copy with your 1023 application, your articles, your bylaws, etc. You have to do annual filings with the Attorney General's office. That form is RRF1. You have to do annual filings with the Secretary of State's office, actually every 2 years. It's called the Statement of Information that updates your officers. Who are your officers of your nonprofit? Who's your agent for service or process? That's the person designated by your organization to receive legal process in case you get sued. Okay?
What is that 30 days within 30 days of?
Within 30 days of receiving any donation for your entity, you're supposed to file Form CT1. There's no penalty if you file it later than 30 days. I generally file it for my clients after we've prepared the 1023 application, because they want a copy of that anyway, and they're going to just send you letters. Hey, we need a copy of your 1023. You know, you respond to us within 30 days,
So
and
you haven't gotten that back from the IRS saying approved. You can send that in. 'Cause that,
they also want a copy. They also want a copy of your letter of determination. So you have to send that in to them as soon as you get that. So you're going to be sending in forms to them on at least a couple occasions. Okay, and then the last line item is Form 199. That goes to the Franchise Tax Board. That's your annual tax return. The state or the federal equivalent is Form 990. Okay, I recommend getting help filling out these forms for your first time. Okay, because they're complicated. All right, so this is the point where I get to talk about what my firm does and how we can help you. Okay, so I want you to everybody close their eyes. Okay, so in the beginning of our presentation, we talked about the challenges of starting a nonprofit. You know, maybe like when you're looking in that Form 1023 and you're saying, oh my God, what the heck does this mean? What does this legalese mean? How am I going to fundraise and make my nonprofit a reality? It's just too much. You know, and you're feeling maybe overwhelmed with the process, and maybe you're going to give up on your idea. Okay? Now, I want you to imagine 4 to 7 months from now. Close your eyes. 4 to 7 months from now, you're fully incorporated. You have your bylaws that are adopted by your board of directors. You have a solid legal foundation in place. You have a board, you have solid leadership. You're implementing your fundraising strategy. You've got a website live. You're taking donations. You're approved by the IRS. You answered all their questions, even their follow-up questions. You're actively networking and promoting your nonprofit. You're soliciting volunteers and people are signing up to help out. You're carrying out your programs, whether it's doing that after-school program where you're actually teaching kids about art and sustainability, or you're feeding families that don't have enough to eat, or you're helping to bring economic development to some community. Well, my firm can help you get there. I'm going to suggest to you, you can open your eyes now. Would you rather learn to reinvent the wheel or learn how to grow and sustain your organization? The legal foundation of your nonprofit, yes, there's some ongoing things that you need to do, but it's front-loaded. It's incorporating, set up bylaws, applying for status with the IRS, doing all the registrations with the various government agencies involved. It's a lot of work in the very beginning. It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of separate parts, a lot of moving parts to that whole puzzle. I'm going to suggest to you that you should be working on all of these other items rather than doing the initial paperwork for setting up your nonprofit. These are what the keys that are growing and sustaining your nonprofit over the long term. Yes, it's important to know what your articles of incorporation are, your bylaws, and the application process. You know, if you work with our office, you're going to learn all that working with us. You know, we're going to be driving the process with you. Okay, so we offer a turnkey solution to becoming a 501c3. We offer personalized service. You'll be fully formed and compliant for your first year with both the federal and state level. We have a 100% success rate, and we've helped over 1,000 nonprofits get started. If you look at our website, there's a map there that has a dot for every, not all of them, but 3/4 of them, but it's all over the country and some internationally too. You will be fully approved, tax-exempt nonprofit, or we'll refund your attorney's fees. Again, thank you for coming.
Thank you.